right? So as we are comfortably into fashionably late, past our hard start, and right about the point when we do until we don't, are there any other questions, any other already in motion facts that you feel your character should be or may be aware of or need to be aware of? Going thrice, going twice, going none whatsoever. And the quietude being a thing that we are all on reading from the same book, if not the same page and chapter. First and foremost, and most pressingly, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Truncatedly, play is important. It allows us the opportunity to remain as young as we are able to. It gives us all of the endorphins and good time chemicals of these moments, surviving them without the risk of actually having to put ourselves into turmoil. So the short and long of the short of it, thank you, and thank you. And for the record, this is officially the City of Forgotten Care inaugural first episode, entitled The Always Fake Moonlight. There is a understanding as to what being a city means, especially for the kindred. There is a singular point that controls the flow and management of the city. There is the top dog and all of those of the pack that follow along. At least that's what most kindred would tell you. That's what most kindred believe. Whether that top dog is the prince, the baron, the pater, or just the boss, the commissar, or any other title that they choose to call themselves. There's but one. That ain't the case here in New Orleans. Here in the city that Care forgot, here in the Crescent City, here in the Big Easy, things are done a little differently. Things are done with a sense of pride in keeping one's dirty laundry to oneself, putting the best foot forward and treating the guest as if they are king. Here in the city of New Orleans, there are two princes. There are Marcel Guibault, the Prince of New Orleans, including the entirety of the parish. And then there's the Prince of the Quarter, Antonio Calabalarchi, who handles the tourist trade, who keeps things in line, keeps the blood flowing, keeps things happily in balance. And while everyone understands that there are two princes, all of the locals understand that there are two princes. The locals also understand that mitigating and minimizing the natural friction of two powerful individuals forced to work in accordance with one another is the Grand Hostess, Morgaine, and the Lamplighter. Because there's no denying that the Lamplighter is a character unto itself. It is a fixture of hospitality, a symbol as to what the city actually is. It is a hospitable, welcoming port where what you see is never all that there is. It is the understanding that there is a way that business can be done without upsetting the apple cart. No reason to be enemies when you can be friends who maybe don't like each other as much as you should. And so, with that hanging over our head, with that sentiment out there in the ether around these characters, we swoop through a New Orleans rising for the evening. We swoop through a New Orleans where the mythos that New York is the city that doesn't sleep, or is the only city that doesn't sleep, is as untrue as it has ever been, as those individuals who probably should have taken a nap 2-3 days ago are only kicking into high gear. The soft strains of jazz that echo through Jackson Park and various other places around the city grows a little more hip. Instead of it just being jazz or woodwind being played, the Zydeco comes into play. The bands are starting. The loud trombones and wood instruments, the guitars and pianos kick into gear. The night comes alive. And like clockwork, so do our characters. If you all be so kind, just go ahead and roll your rouse rolls for the evening, making any adjustments for if you would seek to dance amongst the human and blush to pass your wolfishness as being of the sheep. While that is being done, and everyone is coming to life, you are resurrecting for the evening, we will move through in alphabetical order as to how you all find yourselves at the lamplighter after resurrecting for the evening. The reason for you all being at the lamplighter is that there has been several instances of the law of comity being betrayed. There's been several instances of the peace being threatened, if not outright destroyed. And there have been actions taken by those others elsewhere in the city that has led to the needing of a meeting. Not just any meeting, but a meeting of 5 of the most middle management level authorities throughout the quarter and throughout the city. While the lamplighter has always been a status symbol, a landmark, and a place for of such decisions being made, there are other places that no longer exist that still have a similar mythos to them. One of them, of course, being Christians, which no longer exists as it was. The other, of course, being Cast Iron Rose, a restaurant that, if things are to be believed, go back just shy of Little Dizzy's being around. The kindred crews who run the areas that house those establishments have chosen tonight to have their own sort of commission meeting, a outlining of the crimes and instances that have gone wrong and those responsible, and as such, being ever the grand hostess that she is, her favorite crew of street and slightly above street level kindred who are able to provide entertainments, provide social espionage, and muscle to keep most of the human and the entirety of the non-invited kindred in line. Because just because you're not invited to the lamplighter doesn't mean that the invitation ever does not exist. You are still welcome, but there are certain spaces and places inside that you are not allowed to go. Now, we know that the lamplighter is a special place, but one of the many specialities of the place is its design. The lamplighter, from the outside, approaching from the main door, looks as if it is a singular one-story building, like the blacksmith shop that it started as. But that is not the case. It is actually a 3-story building, except for, unlike 96.7% of buildings in New Orleans, it descends into the bowels of the earth. It's built on a slant, and so you enter on the main floor. As you move further north into the building, the floor gently swoops and dips so that where you are, if you follow the main path through the building, goes 2 and then 3 levels below street level. So as you move through various checkpoints of the building, there are guards here and there, security staff and what have you, you find yourself lower and lower and lower until you reach the furthest north portion of the building and realize that you are effectively subterranean. The music is always spot on. The bands that play both live and DJ are beyond reproach. They're some of the highest paid entertainers in the area. And for those of you with special access, those of you who have been given the tour and allowed in several other places, through various paths through the building along the edges of the floor, you go from the ground level to, at the furthest north portion of the being in the elevated VIP area, able to look down on the massive main dance floor and entertainment space. Below you, one level is a secondary VIP area. And below that, of course, the main dance floor, the main floor level bar, and what have you. It is a wonder and a maze as open as a book, yet also holding all of its secrets easily there just beyond reach. So that being the case, starting in alphabetical order, which would be, dear old Reverend Abe, how did you arrive for this evening? How did you manage to get here? What were some of the evening oblations you've done upon resurrecting for the night to be here?
Well, let me see. I got up from my abode, checked what day it was, just to make sure I didn't sleep a little too long. Just made doubly sure everything was down pat. Before getting up here in my old ass truck. Didn't have no need to go out for a meal or nothing after all. Not yet, anyhow. Just come straight here from my work.
Well, that's the funny thing. The night is always easy. Like, the travel through New Orleans is actually downright expedited. The expressways move with a mind of their own, and everyone seems to be moving in concert towards their goal. And invariably, as is usually the case, that goal is the quarter, or maybe St. Cloud, or the Desire area. There are several parties and several crews that, do their thing in that area. Some actually end up working maintenance and the like in third shift and second shift jobs, so they'll swing up 90 and get off near the Lower Garden District or move through Central City toward the Uptown Carrollton area. But for the most part, everyone heads to the quarter. It's where the tourists are. It's where the easy bilking is. It's where you could, much like Vegas, keep your hand out and make quite a pretty penny. The thing is, the quarter, there's not any real driving there. You see taxis and liveries and the like, but you know that a personal vehicle, one with New Orleans plates that it doesn't have a shield, will most likely get towed, ticketed, or otherwise harassed by the sheriffs who do everything they can to increase the revenue for the city. So the question is, do you drive directly into the quarter, directly towards the lamplighter, or do you find a place somewhere on the outskirts of the quarter and make yourselves at home? Armstrong Park isn't that far, and neither is Jackson Square. Not far from both of those locations are huge parking facilities designed to keep vehicles as invisible and off the streets as possible.
I'd probably go reliable, the one near Jackson Square.
Nice.
And then use the old leg express, as they say.
Excellent. So you're making your way through the parking facility, up and out, coming out somewhere near Pirates Alley, which is, half a block from St. Louis Cathedral, and making your way over Royale so that you can eventually make that left towards the lamplighter. Would be so kind of go ahead and roll your wits plus awareness, or wits plus streetwise. Standard DC.
Okay, let me see. Wits plus streetwise is the better one, so it's going to be 5. I hate the new bot.
You're being dramatic.
Well, it seems like that was a failure.
Well, looks can be deceiving. They're not in this particular case. But failure, like chaos, is a letter. It gives us the opportunity to enmesh ourselves in the world a little bit more. Because at this point, the only way is up. As you make your way through the surprisingly packed streets, surprisingly busy streets. Winter in New Orleans isn't winter anywhere else. It's wet. It's a little chill. People put on windbreakers or jackets, but it's never quite cold enough that you need to bundle up in boots or heavy dungarees or the like, especially being as you are already dead. But it is noticeable, the difference in dress and attire of those that you pass. And you can tell who is local because their jacket is a little heavier, their collars are held a little higher. Tourists and those just visiting or just swinging through, not prepared for New Orleans' definition of cold, often are dressed ill for the weather. Except for those who come from northern climes who are dressed even more for the weather. Their jackets rated for colder climes, their attire and hats obvious. But otherwise, it's a nice quiet night as you make your way toward the lamplighter. Your beast doing what beast do? Nettle you a little bit here, whisper a little bit there, all without quite crossing the boundary of being annoying enough that you need to address it, just yet at least. Sliding along as the river makes its way. It is a rarity that the beast doesn't wake you up with a quick, stiff kick to the ribs, or attempt to pull your tongue down the back of your throat. But as you are given the opportunity to rise for the evening bowl, how do you make your way to the lamplighter? What are your evening ablations?
Alright, so what Bo does is initially wake up, cut his hair, leaving his goatee up, and take a quick shower, grab his black security shirt, riding black leather jacket, get on his Chieftain Elite Indian motorcycle, and just ride straight down towards the lamplighter.
Knowing the behavior of the sheriffs and the fact that they tend to target local vehicle Louisiana license plates, do you drive through the quarter and park near the lamplighter, or you find one of the 2 or more local parking facilities? There's the spot not far from Louis Armstrong and the spot not far from Jackson Square. Or do you risk it and park on the street?
I'm gonna go ahead and park it in the parking garage. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna park in the parking garage that's near Louis Armstrong's, and then just kind of walk on in. Since I don't need to, I'm not hungry or anything, I'm just gonna walk on in through the front door.
Alright, that being the case, would you be so kind as to roll either your wits and awareness or your wits and streetwise?
Alright. So that's gonna be that. That didn't work. Let me try it again. Okay.
Another lovely night in the Crescent City. The streets are busy. There are folks moving here, then thither. Most of them bundled up for the weather. While everyone comes for the jasmine and bloom, jazz music, most people end up staying for the high humidity. Even in a night like tonight, where it's slightly cooler than it should be, and winter is full upon the city, it's nice for you. It's nice in general, but specifically for you, with your past in the military and having to ruck through all sorts of climates, this is that perfect, moderate, middle of the road where it's not all that bad. You find it a little difficult to not smile as, one person or another gives you a inclined head nod. The sort of thing that lets you know that they don't know you, but they are hoping to not be a negative. They're hoping to keep things moving, so you don't get the up tilt. You get the down, the slight show of respect one to another, something that can be dangerous. And you chalk it up to, mostly out of towners. You don't get no who that or where you at. You don't get any of the normal. You get the calm, polite nods from anywhere and everywhere around the world, making your way to the lamplighter. And as you move your way across one street, up one room, down another, Harper, it is without exaggeration that your skills, both in Mourner and the facilities you have access to, have been utilized with great care and downright secrecy by the Grand Hostess and her staff over the years. This particular evening, unlike the usual, you have been invited to be on hand, which says so many things and nothing all at once. Being on hand, interesting, but so be it. How does Harper make her way? How does Harper arrive? Especially as her beast has not been quiet. Her beast hasn't been tamed. Her beast is while not kicking out one of her ribs or leaving claw marks along the inside of her stomach, has decided to let you know that enough's enough. We should be feasting. Enough's enough. We should be pulling the entrails of some warm living thing to glimpse a portent of the future. We should be making art. We should be feasting on the lives and memories of someone, something warm.
Harper, you there?
Right. So, Harper. Just her, evening rundown, I guess.
Yes. Dying for the day is nowhere near as painful as being resurrected for the day, because no time has passed. Yet you know that the sun has raced across the sky, and your beast is being, to put it mildly, a pain in the ass, and not one that you can properly lube up for. It is gnawing and annoying and constantly, we should be eating. What are you doing? Why are you doing anything but sinking Fang into something warm?
Well, she will make her way out of her cozy little closet in the mortuary. And, she feels a bit peckish tonight, so she will go to the refrigeration room and peruse her wares. Eventually she'll pick out something nice and juicy, maybe a kidney tonight, and make a nice little smoothie, have a drink while she's doing some work before she gets summoned or has to go to where she needs to be.
The summons already having come, and while travel is never as large of an issue in New Orleans as it is elsewhere, there's not quite the same hustle and bustle. And while the speed limit is nothing more than a suggestion for most people, Harper's fairly law-abiding when it comes to such things. The secret, of course, being never do crime when you're doing crime. And while it's only just under 3 miles from where she is to the lamplighter, being prepared and arriving fashionably on time is always a thing, because business being business, a bad word is, well, with most of your business coming either through Gibo's people or through the Grand Hostess's people, cutting off 50% of your opportunity to practice your art would be a death blow. You'd only be half the kindred you thought you were. You'd only have half the resources that would be needed for you to exist in the manner that you've grown accustomed to. So how does Harper make their way across 90 and up towards the lamplighter?
Well, I presume that she would maybe take a bicycle. She is encouraging going green after all. So, some of the side roads, nothing risky.
Well, that being the case, being she's going to take her bike and try to be green, she'd probably head north through Algiers Point up to the Algiers ferry terminal and take that right on across the Mississippi. Because much like train service in New York or ferry in the Upper Peninsula, it is a fairly constant bit of public transportation that is always in use. And while the streetcars are what New Orleans, is specifically the quarter, is known for, right? You can take the streetcar up and around the quarter and get a scenic tour of the city. The ferry is how most people cross the river. Is how most people cross the big muddy, especially those who are attempting to not, leave such a large carbon footprint. The ferry lets you off just south of the quarter So you'd have a choice of either taking the streetcar north across Bourbon or northeast up and around past Steamboat Natchez into the quarter to reach the Lamplighter. Either choice leaves you with more than enough opportunity to take in the night, take in the ebb and flow of people. Now, while New Orleans never sleeps, there's always someone partying, everyone taking a little lagniappe for themselves, a little bit of free something. No one goes home alone, and no one drinks alone either. Would you be so kind as to roll either your wits plus streetwise or your wits plus awareness? Because even as the city doesn't sleep, there is an ebb and flow to things. There is a balance of how the night operates on a consistent basis. There are special events always, but even they blend into the pattern of the whole. Even they abide by the natural flow of time.
That would be 2.
Excellent. And it's a lovely evening. More people, more tourists are clearly in town. It is, you can tell by their dress. Most people are underdressed for the surprising coolness of the evening, but there's a lot, well, not a lot, but more than you'd expect who are overdressed for the coolness of the evening, making their way in and around the quarter, seeing the sight, making all the ahs and oohs that you expect. Most of them silently, of course, because everybody needs to stop and take a selfie. But surprisingly busy. It's a good night. Good hunting is possible. And as you make your way to the Lamplighter, those are the foremost ideas that are circulating. Now, as we slide right along to Evergreen, the day is the day and it takes care of itself, yet the night is when the world becomes worthwhile in living in. You've been hungrier. You can't immediately put your finger on it, but you've been hungrier. You know that for a fact. Hunger was a constant in those early days. But as the night makes the world worth living, it is not just you that rises. It's not just you that's resurrected. It is you and your beast. It is you and the other that sits there gnawing, chittering, washing its hands in the blood of all the innocent lives that you've absorbed over the years. Its steely black eyes peering out from the inside of your skull demands to be fed. It doesn't beat around the bush with poetry or some vaunted prose to win you over. It doesn't gently needle you. It just grabs you by the short curlies and screams in your ear, "Feed me!" Repeatedly, constantly causing your left eye to twitch in response because it doesn't shut up, it doesn't stop. And instead of, taking a hint that you're trying to maybe, possibly not make a mess of things when you need to be at the Lamplighter, it keeps going.
Always fun. All right. Well, I guess I know what my first stop tonight's gonna be.
And where do you think that stop might be? Is Evergreen going to spend the early hours of his resurrection for the evening insatiating his beast, or is he going to arrive or seek to arrive far more promptly toward that Lamplighter?
Well, it might not catch me any points showing up a bit later than, let's say, the rest of my friends here. I think it would serve me far less to show up ravenous and on the edge. So, if possible, along my route, I would find a meal. Not exactly my preferred way of doing it, but I'd gotta make decent time at the very least.
Well, that's the beauty of things as far as such things go. Being all the way out on the northeast end of New Orleans, up there near Medea, there's the easiest way, the fastest way, the most expedient way to cover the almost 6.5 miles to get from your abode, from your haven to the Lamplighter. It's taking 90. Taking 90 to the 10, shooting past the interchange and over the small little tributary near Falberg Brewing, shooting past Desire and speeding on right through St. Roque, all the way down through the South 7th Ward. Now, what most people don't pay attention to is anywhere outside of the quarter. But New Orleans is home to a width and breadth of several different communities, and each of them tied loosely into the spirit of their Cajun and Creole ancestry. So, the Desire area was a developmental neighborhood. So while it is, just like all of the others, a seat of poverty and potential demise, it is also burgeoning. They have their own Starbucks as well as several local coffee shops that actually do fair business. They have several former housing projects where all manner of individuals have made their way into middle America and beyond. It is, without beating a dead horse, a place where going missing is to be expected. So to truncate the hunting roll for Evergreen, he is an alley cat, correct?
Oh yeah.
So opportunity is more important than a particular vintage.
Indeed.
So does he wait until he gets to the Desire area, or does he try to find some other place along his route? You know, he can always swing off near New Orleans East, up there by Venetian Isles if he wants. He can maybe go north a little bit, head over to Little Woods, or swing down through Pines Village. Or hell, if he really wants to add a little kink, he could always swing through the Lakefront Airport area up there near Seabrook. Lots of strange individuals that come in through that late night airport. People with money gained illegally, and then you have those who gain their money through not actually working.
Hunting near an airport's too much of a risk, and, well, as we've already established, walking quietly and being quiet yourself is the best way to get along. People already used to getting gone in the Desire Street. Seems like the best idea there. On that note, it also allows me to get a little bit closer to my end goal without straying off too much.
That it does, which is his own bad thing. Because the Desire area, like I said, is a slightly up-and-coming area. It's not quite completely gentrified. It is, after all, home to the George Washington Carver High School. There's always the, the K&M. There's the playground, which has won awards for community developed area. And most importantly, there's the House of Prayer and Refuge, which operates as a shelter of sorts. It provides sanctuary to those poor lost souls who've given themselves over to drug, drink, and other things, and illicit things that they can't quite make themselves past. Making one of them disappear would be expected, wouldn't it? So would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your either strength and brawl, or, because you're an up-close personal sort of individual, you can also roll your strength plus firearms. Get right up close to them, brandish the firearm, and get them to walk into the dark willingly.
You know what? I like playing a little risky, and I don't want to get too much in the way of in the light shows tonight, so let's go with the option of firearms. Try and get them into the dark before we get nice and dirty.
Excellent. Standard DC. Make it happen.
Alrighty. Gonna drop some willpower on that if available.
Fire away.
Still no luck.
Oh, but that is very lucky indeed. You draw down on an individual who is about 6'2", 260 pounds. His clothes are last year's shabby. I mean, he's a little bit cleaner than one would most suspect with someone living on the streets. Even though his beard, full and bushy though it is, looks sorely mismanaged and mangled from a life of living out of doors. But as you draw down on him, there's a look of recognition, and instead of throwing his hands skyward, he slips them both into his jacket pockets, spreads his feet, balances himself. Little cousin, that ain't gonna be the best thing you want to do. So unless, of course, that motherfucker made out of chocolate, I suppose, you should probably find someone a little softer.
This man striking a shooting pose?
No. He slips both hands into his jacket pocket, spreads his feet, and looks down his nose at you.
Yeah. I'd have got my eyes on you, boy. The gun didn't work. So, until I've got any inclination that what I'm biting into might not be the prime meat I'm looking for, we're moving into what we gotta move into.
As you show no signs of wavering, he and launches an attack that's designed to tear half your face off. It's the only warning shot he knows. And while
You gotta love them when they fight back.
And while that's happening, Mallory, tonight's the night. You are front and center. While you're not the main ring of this circus, you are part of the distraction. You're part of the entertainment. You rouse with the need to get to the lamplighter. The night is in the offing. The day has gone its way. And the spirits of the dead, as always, whisper in your ear about all the success that lay ahead of you. It'd be a lot easier. It'd be a lot more manageable, as it were, if the beast didn't also whisper with all those spirits of the long forgotten. If it didn't demand that you properly sacrifice to your God, which is you. After all, we are created in God's image, and we could not be created in the image of something that we were not. Communing with the ancestors, reaching into the gulf of souls from which all of us are spent from. A tithing to yourself, to the God that you are, is necessary. We need sustenance. So Mallory, with all of that happening in the wide world of the inner thoughts, how is Mallory preparing her evening? How is she making her way to the lamplighter?
When she gets up, and of course, at first, not too much hungrier than what she normally is, but then blushing for the evening to look human makes the beast kind of perk up. That makes her roll her eyes. She takes a couple minutes to change the water on some of her altars and replace some of the food and things like that, just to keep things peaceful on that front. And then literally goes into her room and puts on every gold bangle she has on both arms. Sits there for a minute, jingling them, and then takes off half of them off both arms. And then switches things around until she finds at least a good balance of sound and skin. But ends up being about just 4 on each arm. And rings, and just dolling herself up, fluffing that big, fluffy, wavy, brownish black hair, putting on a little lip gloss, making sure she looks right, to play the part that she likes to play before she goes out. She's not super hungry just yet, so she feels like she can wait a little bit to see what goes on for the night before she commits to trying to find something to eat. Her favorite way of getting around is usually the streetcars, because she knows several of the streetcar drivers. So that's how she's going to get out. So she locks up shop, turns on the close sign, and then heads out to the streetcars.
It's amazing how many people overlook the mass public transportation that is available here in the city. More times than not, it's tourists and the visitors who partake consistently. Like, there's a crew and a group of regulars, members of the city that take part in the streetcars, that take part in the ferries, that use the steamboats for what they were originally designed for, from getting from one end of the city to the next. And while it's just under 7.5 blocks from her shop to the lamplighter, taking the streetcars gives her the opportunity of watching the world go by. And to be so kind as to roll your wits plus awareness, or charisma plus streetwise plus your contacts.
That was the plus contacts.
As you board car 762, which you've ridden roughly in the last 365 days, exactly as of tonight, 100 times. It's a small milestone as far as such things go. Then you're expecting to see Pamela, who normally has this shift. You're not disappointed that Chester is the driver. He's courteous. He's a jolly old man of about 62 years old. His hair, having long gone gray, is bordering on going white. His mustache, strangely enough, however, holds the full blush and bloom of all of that auburn glory that used to be the hair on his head. And despite his age, he is surprisingly chubby. Not fat, not morbidly obese, not a dad bod. No, he's just chubby. His arms are a little wider than expected. His paunch a little more than his frame should probably carry, at least as far in this modern age of, well, physical elitism, working out into being your only sign of personality. His age shows the wrinkles in his hands, but unlike most, because of his age, he is extraordinarily jovial. He is extraordinarily conversational. Being on his car when he is the driver is taking a step back in time and having a mini vaudeville show. He jokes, he jests. Occasionally there's a show of close-up magic that he does, especially when the car is a little lighter than usual. The one with his right hand stretched out, he'll make things appear or disappear, or make a flower appear for someone that steps on with the right color. And he'll have everyone pick out a color before they get to the next stop. All right, y'all. Now, what color we gonna be looking for? Is it gonna be red again, or is it gonna be that lovely green that everybody seems to like? And before you know it, everyone's already playing along. Oh my God, do yellow, do yellow, do yellow. And so he meets people consistently. Most people never really get his name right. Oh, hey, Charles. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Chess. No, Chester likes being called Chester. It was his father's name. It was his father's name. So it's a family name. It's been passed down for several years. Now, his middle name, of course, being Guillaume. Not quite the family name, but has more personality. But he likes Chester because it was his father's name. And everyone that murders it or muddles through it, it's like a dagger in his heart, but he keeps on smiling and laughing through it, though those who've ridden with him know the pain that he feels, and while he never puts it on anybody, it's still there. And so as you get on, you realize the car is a little lighter than usual this hour of the evening. Not as many tourists on board, so you sit close to Chester, and he regales you. Long time no see, Miss Lawson. Been about 3-4 weeks since your last been on. How we doing tonight?
Chester, babe, what's good with you? How your mom now?
Well, you know, she getting on up in age, and she just refused to let me drive her to the store. As per usual, she takes her boogie on down the road like she always has been. Of course, today was a little weird. All these newfangled folks around. Now, instead of saying tourists, instead of saying guest to the city, everyone who's a tourist, everyone who's not a local, is a newfangled person, especially when he's talking to locals. All these newfangled persons doing such and so forth and so on. I wish we had a mayor that wasn't quite so newfangled, as he regale you about the mayor who moved to the city a decade ago instead of being born and bred here. And that's just the way that he speaks.
Well, you know, everybody trying to be fancy nowadays.
I tell you what, you wouldn't believe the things that I saw. When I was rounding Dolphin back there about, 25 so minutes ago, back there toward the end of the line, all the police cars, and they're not even the sheriffs, and the regular New Orleans police ain't got no business down here in the quarter, but you could swear that they were staging something, getting ready to move into the air. Them and all these newfangled, I guess they undercover officers or local patrols. It's almost as if we got Mardi Gras going on with no one knowing. I saw several of them putting on them their bubble coats and all them hats and dressing like they from out of town. Think they gonna fool somebody. Ain't nobody gonna be dumb enough to fall for that. Hell, quarter ain't never this busy this time of night. Look at all of them out there. And that's when you notice he's 100% accurate. There are a lot of tourist dressed individuals up and down the street. There's a lot of people who normally wouldn't be in this area. There's not Mardi Gras going on. There's no real concert. There's no big to do. Yet the quarter is filled with people. There's more people on the streets than you should have any right to expect this time of year, this time of night. And they're doing a good job of milling and taking selfies and blending in. But it's only as you listen to Chester, who's still talking as you look out the window and get lost in thought. But those selfies aren't really selfies. They're taking surveillance pictures of the area that they are in. They are mingling in certain shops more than others. They are making their way converging, trying to make it seem quite natural. And before you know it, you are easing to the lamplighter and preparing to step out. And while that's happening, Salem, you're not ever that far from the lamplighter. So the additional income that is possible from the lamplighter, all of the tourists that are fleeced with a good time, makes the summons, makes the request, makes the invitation something that can't be or shouldn't be denied. The question is, as you rise for the evening and look forward to dreading that 1,100-foot walk from your bookstore to the lamplighter with your beast doing what beasts do, how does Salem go about their evening? What sort of ablations do they begin with?
She will rouse herself and push the blood through her system to appear more like those that she preys upon. She will take some time to put on a scant amount of war paint, the bare minimum. She will stop and check and see what's going on in her business for a moment before heading out in the street, hoping maybe that she, in the short walk, she might catch a meal, but isn't counting on it.
So she checks her business. Okay. That being the case, would you be so kind as to roll your intelligence plus either finance or wits plus etiquette? Because everything has its ebb and flow, but there's also certain factual factors that would raise or lower flags as needed. So as she goes over the books, her small staff of almost no one doing what they do, operating the business during the day when she's unable to, what is it that she notices? What is it that fate says she sees or feels? It's Tuesday. It's been a really good Tuesday. Normally, on a Tuesday, you don't have quite this much business, but it's a good uptick. That means that you can pay your staff without having to dip into any bit of what you've been putting aside for those rainy days when you don't quite make enough. But they've made quite a lot. There's been a lot of foot traffic. Everything's looking roses, which means as you head out into the street, and there's a few more people here or there, it's not quite Mardi Gras levels of busy. It's not quite big concert levels of busy. There's no football game going on, but it is definitely busy, and it shows that your shop would be as busy as it has been today. What sort of predator is Salem?
She is an Osiris.
Oh, yes. Well, in this press and throng of people, while she normally has a certain, not dietary need or restriction, just a flavor that she likes, a certain amount of adulation with as many people that are on the street. Would you be so kind as to roll your intimidation plus fame for me, please? Every little bit helps and hurts, as it should be, perfectly balanced. The opportunity for great success and great failure.
So too.
You expect a small bit of recognition when as many people are on the street. You expect a little bit of adulation, a little bit, oh my God, it's you. And you're a little let down that even though you're only 1,100 feet from the lamplighter, that you're not bombarded with the press and throng of your adoring and needful parishioners. That's what you see them as. They're your parishioners. They worship as you tell them to worship. They believe as you tell them to believe, because they need you in their life. You are their guiding star. And the fact that you haven't been bombarded with a press of people looking all around you, all of this tourists and individuals out on the streets, you should be hounded. You shouldn't be able to make it 4 steps, let alone, almost the 600 that you've made it, without being, oh my God, hey Salem, how are we doing? And to say that it is the preppiest goth you have ever seen would be an understatement. They're not dressed in the typical dark blacks and heavy caked on makeup. Their hair isn't dyed a bluish black. They're not wearing a overly abundant amount of mascara. There aren't any dark streaks of fingernail polish over their hands. No, not at all. He is tall and thin as a railroad spike, dressed in a dark salmon pink, his hair bright blonde, his eyes blue as a stormy sky, and his pants flooding, striped in various shades of red. Is that a hint of orange? You're not sure why that works, but it does. It's got to be not orange. Maybe that's burnt sienna, adding a little bit of shadow. But it works. The palette that he's chosen, while bright and welcoming, is somewhat depressing. Because unlike most, you know that the style of dress that he's wearing is actually what was the typical asylum patient's ensemble. Modernized, of course, and he's allowing himself to wear shoes and socks, but it is exactly the sort of thing that asylum rest home individuals will be forced to wear. The colors, while bright and acting as camouflage to keep the truth of what he's wearing from being obvious. And instead of, the occasional shackles or a straitjacket, his watches and wristbands that he's wearing signify much the same thing. He knows that he's also wearing a garter around both of his arms to signify where they might be shackled and restrained by a straitjacket. His makeup and contouring is spot on, so much so that most would never realize that he's actually wearing it. Yet here he is. Oh my God, Salem! I loved the last show that we had. How did you know that Mud Ward, which is I'm sorry. I'm taking too much of your time. I know you look busy. I'm sorry, but oh God, when are we gonna have another cauldron session?
Well, I'm a bit busy tonight. Perhaps we could arrange something.
I'd love to. My girlfriend is head over heels. That trick you did with freeze drying the herbs before we use them, keeping them absolutely fresh, that was a touch of genius. Now, we normally keep everything in the crisper drawer where most people keep their vegetables, but the humidity adjustment usually keeps them pretty fresh. We don't keep them as long as we probably should. And I don't know about you, but my Gregory has been off as of late. What was I saying? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm holding you up. I need to get to work myself. Well, you have fun. And yes, your opportunity is slowly passing. In his wish to be nothing more than pleasing, he thinks that he might be taking too much of your time.
She will entwine her arm into his arm. Say, walk with me. I'm not going far. It'll only take a moment.
Oh, of course. Oh my God. My girlfriend will be so jealous. Oh my God. Are you doing something different with your hair?
Oh, this? I just call this rolled out of bed.
So troll, so troll. 700 feet from your door. You're coming up on Royale. At the corner of Royale and Saint Philippe, which is where you typically take when making your way to the Lamplighter, because it's there on just off of a block north of Dauphine, right there on Bourbon itself. But as you're crossing Royale, you know that just up ahead, just past the coffee house to your left, there's a cul-de-sac you can slip into and have a small bit of privacy. The cul-de-sac leading all the way, of course, back across to Domain through a pseudo maze of one cul-de-sac connecting with the next. Most people from larger urban cities never quite understand that there's no such thing as an alley in the quarter. These were formerly roads that houses and buildings were built atop of, closing those roads off, closing those paths of travel off. So there are lots of maze-like spaces between the buildings that lead into what were formerly streets and footpaths through the quarter, this being one of them. NOLA dock is there next to the coffee shop. There's surprisingly a large amount of people on the street. So you can't just pull into a doorway and have your way with him. You need a bit more privacy.
Well, if I can find a private spot without drawing too much suspicion by him or anyone else who might be looking on, then I will seize the opportunity. If not, well, it can always wait till later.
So dipping off the major path, dipping off of Saint Philippe, you find yourself between NOLA dock and the coffee shop. Using the gangway into the cul-de-sac, you find yourself behind the buildings. You find yourself off the beaten path. There shouldn't be anyone there. And just as you ease him against the wall, your eyes making contact, his heart beating faster as all sorts of fantasies are clearly running through his head, you hear the telltale footfalls of people moving through the space. It blows your high. There's nothing worse than failing to get prey that you can have your way with than being cock-blocked by the public. And the people heading through the alley are dressed in jeans and overcoats and the sort of things that tourists wear because they're not expecting that New Orleans can get cold, while at the same time fearing that it might. So they come down wearing all of their gear from northern cities. They come down wearing clothes that are not suited for the natural humidity of the area usually. But on nights like tonight, where it's slightly cooler than it should be, they're right at home. And they're loud, and you hear them talking, oh, yeah, we can cut through here. Oh, hey, how we doing, folks? How are you? Can you tell us how to get to Fifi Mahoney's, the wig shop? We thought it was through here. The signs that we back. Oh, are we interested in something?
No, dear, you're fine. I would go to the Apple. The Apple's much more interesting than Fifi's. Speaking of which, she will summarily give them the cold shoulder and look at what would have been her prey. You and your girl drop by and arrange something.
I would love to. I gotta get to work, and you can tell that the fantasy in his head made him uncomfortable. There's something about being so close to it becoming a reality that scared him. And the interlopers, the visiting carpetbaggers, made escape the only thing that really settles into place for him. And with your beast grumbling and complaining, you continue your way on to the lamplighter.
She snaps her coat dramatically in typical vampire fashion as she walks off. You know, always a show for the tourists.
And as you make your way out of the cul-de-sac and back north across Saint Philippe, we turn our gaze to Abraham, who's arriving at the lamplighter right this second. The city has changed several handfuls of times just since the 80s. The one constant that remains in place is that the Lamplighter is a place of refuge. It is a place of warmth. It is a place of welcome. It's a place to get a taste of actual true New Orleans hospitality. The meals, while usually prepared rustically, are no less artistic than if you went to Lafitte, which is literally right across the street. It's no less artistic than if you went to the Cast Iron Rose. It is no less artistic than if you had one of the breakfasts prepared at Cafe Lafitte, which is just down Bourbon that away. All the same, as you make your way to and into the building, the lighter business is a little expected. There's a meeting happening tonight that is more kindred than mortal, but the lightness of business as it stands right now is unexpected. Normally, even at this hour of the evening, the front bar, which is what you walk into before moving further into the building, is usually packed. There's usually the folks that manage to drink away their lunch, most of their dinner, and working on their, early midnight snack of drinking down the day are at hand. But presently, the crowd's lighter than it should be, while the crowds outside are heavier than it should be. The night's in a weird place. Winter's on the wind, yet it's still humid enough that it's not uncomfortable for you yet. The streets are loud and busy, and the bar is a little quieter than it should be. In realization of those things, what does Abraham do?
Well, I'm on the job tonight, just to make sure, right?
Yes, you keep those nosy busybodies that don't know well enough alone from getting themselves into more trouble than they can dig themselves out of. There's a decorum that's expected.
And is that usually like here in the more public area, or is that usually in the more, let's say, masquerade-friendly areas?
It is usually in the masquerade-friendly area, though. To start off, most times there's a few aperitifs, a few shared conversations before making their way back. This is the drinks and jovial conversation portion of the evening.
Okay. Then just go about the normal business. Talk to the normal people I would if they're here. If there's anything equivalent to like a coat and hat rack. If it's that sort of place, you take off his jacket and hat and just,
It is that sort of place further on into the establishment. This front portion of the bar is literally to scope out the talent that makes themselves available. Usually, you can pick out one or two individuals that you can escort back and keep a loose eye on over the course of the night and make yourselves at home inside of their veins. Pickings are slimmer than they should be. The persons gathering in this front portion aren't as voluminous as they usually are. There's not a numerous amount of potential candidates as there should be. There's an ebb and flow to everything, and even though this meeting is technically something special and doesn't happen often, there is an ebb and flow to the way things work, and that ebb isn't ebbing, and that flow isn't flowing. So you move through the front portion of the bar, heading toward the middle section of the building, where the one-story blacksmith that Lamplighter once was becomes a two-story building. You get the chance to go lower into the more public spaces. If you stay on this level as you move further into the building, you'll head into the more private areas, where the coat check is, where the hat check is, where the ticket girl is always happy to see everyone because she smoozes and works everyone for their tips, for their gratuity. A little lagniappe to go along with her night. Hand out, smile out, and as you head back to drop your things, a cool touch of an ice spider begins crawling your spine. 60 years ago, you were here on a night like tonight. You, of course, having already made your bones with the Grand Hostess. You were here the night when Lafitte's hotel was set ablaze, where Prince Guibo and his good friend and associate Lawrence routed a Sabbat ductus who had come into the city and had begun setting up shop inside Lafitte's. As an example as to them meaning business, an example of Prince Guibo willing to do what is necessary when there is necessary, sacrificing a mild tourist mecca to prove that this city will remain inviolately in the hands of the Camarilla, or we will destroy it, while the monsters of the Sabbat have the opportunity to run willy-nilly and wild into the night. They don't have the intestinal fortitude of willing to sacrifice everything in the name of their principles. They're okay with destroying other people's things. They use that as a weapon to keep them in check, to force them to play their game. Guibo proved that night that that wasn't the game he would play. Measure for measure, this and the more. If it requires destroying the city's been destroyed before, it will survive. And it's hard shaking off that feeling that with the wind blowing off the river as it is, with this night being as cool as it is, with the streets being as populated as it is, the strange similarity of spirit that settles across your shoulders. "Oh, hey, Abe, how we doing?" says the ticket check girl as you make your way back to her.
Oh, trying to survive the cold as per usual.
"Oh, I got just the thing. Leroy came in with his mash, and you know how he mixes in them junipers and mulberries to make it all warm and spicy for this time of year. He is back in business, and I tell you, it is perfectly sweet this time. It ain't overdone, and it's not underspiced. It is absolutely delicious. I think I saw him around here earlier. He was talking to those businessmen from Detroit that came in."
Oh, now that just sounds loving. Could you point me in his direction?
"Oh, he went on, showed them downstairs, the dance floor on the middle level there. He took them that way. I guess he was going to try to introduce them to some of the hostesses that work over there. You know how Morgan keeps them all pretty and polished up. I don't know what he's working at exactly, but I think he may be trying to get himself a distribution deal."
Well, I do hope that he gets it, because I do remember his work is mighty fine.
"It is. Are you okay? You seem a bit peaked."
I've just got a feeling. That's it.
"Oh no, Mommy has feelings from time to time. You know, her sister is buried up there in Ursuline's. Her family go back. Oh well, But when she has a feeling, when she said you should probably find you a nice corner, sit down and sit a spell, drink a little tea, and see what happens. Though, that shine ain't that bad either."
I might just do that. Hey, mention your mom. How's she doing? I ain't seen her in some time.
"She is good, and we do apologize for not making it out to your Bible study there, but we were a little busy. Had to go on up by Rouge to visit some family. Her cousin's father took ill, and though they just in-laws and not even proper in-laws, common law marriage and all, but we still look after her home from time to time."
Well, it's good to hear that you're keeping an eye on family. That's always one of the most important things in life.
We do our best, but Meemaw don't drive the way she used to. It used to take us only about 25 minutes to get from here up to the Rouge, but now she's taking a full almost hour, almost going the speed limit. And you know how dangerous that is on the 10.
Oh, I know. Now, about my ticket, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. Here you go.
You're fine. And here's my hat, here's the jacket. Thanks.
My pleasure, Rev. It's always good to see you. Ain't like the rest of them other 10-plated preacher men, unwilling to get your hands dirty and do a little work. It's always good to see you. Always good.
And it's always my pleasure as well, dear.
Seconds later, as you leave the ticket girl, is there a particular route that you're taking to find Leroy? Or are you going to secure the premises and just do a quick security once over?
I'll do a quick security once-over. Despite how he outwardly portrays himself, usually he does tend to be very by the book and serious and does his job properly, or at least tries to.
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your wits plus streetwise, or if you like, mix things up a little bit, you can also roll yours wits plus subterfuge. Standard DC.
I'll go wits plus subterfuge. Right. I will spend a willpower.
Spend them if you got them.
Success.
The streets were busy. The entry bar light. Now, while the Lamplighter is a magical place, and most people have the feeling that they are welcome and that all's well that will end well, Abraham has always been the sort to the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And so as he makes his way around, lightly paying attention to this and lightly paying attention to that, at least on the surface, lightly paying attention, but what he's really doing is scrutinizing the potential threats and those who may be further into their cups than they should be, and those who may be further into their prey than they should be, because, well, you know, nothing's free, even though there is a semblance of gifting being done. There's a south-facing door that is never opened. Not because it doesn't work, but because, well, you know, typically you don't need a breeze. It's one of the few doors that is just out of view. Most people don't even know that it's actually there, except for those who have frequented the Lamplighter. And those that frequent the Lamplighter never use that door, but it's cracked. It's ajar. It's no longer a door. With it facing or being on the southwest side of the building, it completely out of view of the bartenders, most of the hosts, and at this level of the building, most people don't travel through this area often enough to even catch it. The hosts usually work the crowds on the second floor, the dance floor, and then the VIP section. There's a few that float through the front bar, but mostly it's the lower ranking members of the staff. It's the servers and the bartenders that typically work the front portion of the bar, the welcoming initial step in. So it's out of the way. It's centrally located in the building, but it's out of the way. There's no one that you would use that door to smoke. For that, they just go out the door that's on the northeast side of the building. For that, they just step right out front. They can keep an eye on the bar, keep an eye on the crowd, have a quick couple of puffs, and then back inside. Morgaine doesn't mind smoking. In fact, there's 2 rooms in the building that are set aside for it. But that door is open. Not open wide, but unlocked and cracked.
Alright. I'm going to move over to that door. Is this a door to the outside, or is this a door to another room in the building?
It is a door to the outside.
But I'm going to just, take a quick, little peek. And if I don't see nothing, I'm going to close it and relock it if I have to.
There is a duo gently and vociferously making out just outside the door. They're about 1.5 feet, 2 feet away from the door, going at it like 2 high school kids who figured out that kissing makes certain parts of their person tingle.
This seems suspicious at all, or just business as usual for the alleyway?
That's a good question. What do you think?
I don't think anything's suspicious right now.
Now, why would it be suspicious? It's not like you have anything important going on tonight, right? It's nothing big, nothing that would motivate anyone politically to move with it.
Did you say that there was an event tonight?
Yes, indeed.
That's my job to be suspicious, but I'm just going to close that door ever so gently and lock, and just keep a mental note.
Okay, you're doing to close it gently to not attract their attention, or you're just making sure that you don't interrupt the hot and heavy makeout session?
Well, I wouldn't want to slam it and disturb the patrons.
Okay, excellent. Would you be so kind as to roll your dexterity and stealth?
Of course.
Standard plus 1.
Oh, what now? Plus 1?
Standard DC plus 1.
Okay, so 4. Dexterity plus stealth. Oh, this is going to be great. Might have to make bots difficult. Total failure.
The Lamplighter is an old building, and if it's not broke, there's no reason to fix it. So as you move the door, the rusting, almost fused bolt screams in protest, yelling its attention. It's all but screaming bloody murder. And as it... Oh, hey, we're out here!
I see that. Why you out there? Nothing's
We haven't been in New Orleans before. We're sorry. We just we don't we like. I didn't want to we didn't want to. I'm sorry, sir. We just didn't want to indulge in a PDA in front of people. We're sorry. Can we come back in? We'll head back down to the dance floor.
They seem like the sorts that would be brought down to the dance floor, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Rude.
Yeah, they're decently dressed. You can tell that while it's not tailored, it is in fact name brand, though it's a little heavyweight in regards to the weather. Like for you, being a local, having grown up in the area, lived in the area longer than most people even knew the area exists, at least most people in the building, this is a cool night, yeah, but it's not cold enough for that level of dress. Like the full button up, the bright blue striped shirt that has someone's company on it, i.e. Guess. The jeans that are surprisingly well fit. They're not the skinny jeans that have been everyone's wearing, but they're not the baggy boot cut fit. They fit him. They hug his hips. The jacket is a little heavier than it should be, but it's layered. There's a hoodie underneath, and it's puffiness that you can put other clothing underneath. This is the sort of thing that someone from Jersey would wear. Someone from New York or Philadelphia would wear. That northeastern seaboard, that whole lot of them wear the layered look, even those that have money. The girl, however, it is clear that she has considerably more money. Her clothing is all but tailored. It's just puffy enough that it doesn't cause her to look as if she's purposely trying to show off her body, but it's just form-fitting enough to accentuate certain aspects. And then you get to their shoes. Someone would pay a lot of money for that sort of hiking boot that he's wearing. Someone would pay a lot of money for shoes that she's wearing. They're heeled, but it's clear that they have great traction. They're not too small that you've seen most visitors wear. Like they purposely buy smaller shoes than they need so that it goes with their ensemble. But no, they're both wearing relatively sensible though expensive footwear.
Well, you two come on back inside and keep my not to open this door again.
Oh, we're so sorry. We will do. We'll tip the staff more. I'm sorry. And you are. I mean, we can buy you a drink.
I don't drink when on the job. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're on the job. You're part of the security staff or the wait staff.
For lack of a better term, yes. Now please get back inside.
Oh, of course. You don't drink on duty, but could we maybe buy a drink and you can have it at the end of the night, at the end of your shift? When do you get off?
I'd rather not get into details. Please get back inside, or I'm closing the door.
No, of course. And they ease into the door, slinking past, careful to not let the rusted metal touch them.
Now go on back down dance floor and have some fun, whether it's PDA or not.
Of course. Thank you so very much, Mr.
I just look at her.
Right. Sorry, sorry. I shouldn't be trying to make friends. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Hopefully your night gets better.
You enjoy your stay here, however long it is.
Of course. And they head back into the building, moving toward the front portion of the bar to enter into the main path of flow down into the dance floor area. And speaking of dance floor area, coming from Louis Armstrong, the lamplighter is closer by far instead of coming from the Jackson Square parking structure. The night is busier than it should be. There's more people on the street. There's gotta be a concert or something. Probably some local punk band set up somewhere and got people invested. That's usually what happens. Making your way to the lamplighter down St. Philippe and over doesn't leave much time for many thoughts to bombard you. Just enough. And the beast, as always, doing what the beast does. When entering in, do you purposely go to try to find the northeastern door to use, or do you go around to the main front entrance? The northeastern door shouldn't be open, but occasionally one or two people might try to make the connecting path from the northeastern door to Lafitte's, which is directly across the street from the lamplighter. So, Bo, Which door
I'll
do
go
you
ahead
enter?
and head over to that northeastern door. That way I'm not making too much of an entrance.
The northeastern door is usually used by staff members who are helping tourists and guests that are a little too drunk to across the street. It doesn't seem like it should make that huge of a difference, but leaving out the front door means that you have to walk to the end of the block and then across the street, whereas leaving out the northeastern door, there's a straight path from the door to Lafitte's valet station, which means there are witnesses or people that can help, and they don't have to do as much work. That's literally why most times it's in use. And it's usually only done when, again, the tourist, the guest is a little drunker than they should be. It shouldn't be open, unless of course that's already happened.
Body.
It shouldn't be open, but there's a good chance that it might be. And as you make it to that door on the northeastern side of the building, it is open. There's a guy standing half in the door and half out. He's blowing smoke rings with a cigar made of the most odoriferously offending leaf possible. It's not a Cuban knockoff. It's not a Cuban. It's not even a mass-produced anything, because that's actual tobacco leaf that he's smoking. But it is so odious as that it offended your sensibilities of smell when you got close enough, and you're hoping that it was something coming from one of the trash bins, but it's not. It's him standing in his doubly layered winter coat, his nice big heavy thick jeans made into cargo pants, his clearly well maintained, highly polished climbing boot, and then that foul, heavy gauged, almost magnum gauge cigar that he's puffing on, half in and half out the door.
I give him a look. Is he breathing? Lungs, not just the smoking of the cigar, but is his like lungs chest expanding and contracting, or is it just kind of him imitating, using like blush of life or something?
Would you roll your wits plus awareness DC 4?
I might have an idea.
You have several ideas. There are roughly anywhere from 20 to 100 different neurons firing in the human brain every second. Some of them become full-fledged thoughts. Some of them have to team up 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 times over to become a full-fledged thought. Bo didn't have that problem. The electrical impulses in his brain are firing off a mile a minute or more. He easily has several hundred different neurons bombarding each other, most of them centering in and around suspicion. Most of them a little let down when looking the annoyingly brash and bold, clear visitor to the lamplighter as they perfume the air with the burning embers of someone's ass grass. That's the only thing that it could be. This is the grass that is usually fed to donkeys. This sort of thing that you hire several different goats to chew and eat, because they'll eat anything, including grass that, for lack of better words, is so toxic that it barely quantifies as grass. And that's what he's clearly smoking. There's no way that anyone would pay money for a cigar that smells that outright despicable. It's gotta be a kindred. Right? At least that's what every neuron is telling him. It's what every paranoid thought is telling him. Save not. And as you stand there scrutinizing him, looking him from shoe, boot to eyeline and back to boot. Fuck you looking at, boy?
I just stare at him a little more, so leaning forward. Those things will kill you, right?
Yeah, what's it do? The reason why I'm fucking smoking outside. I thought this was supposed to be the city that's big and easy and shit. I don't need this fucking hassle. Move on, man. Leave me alone.
Leaning a little close to him. That thing smells like the inside of your ass crack.
Oh, you got a fucking joke? And he does what tough guys who are clearly afraid do. He lashes out. The flick of the cigar. You see it coming. You see him tensing. You see the stress showing at the edges of his being, the sweat that suddenly popped out on his brow, the stench of flop sweat issuing from beneath those layers of clothing, and the natural secondary response of individuals such as him. The flick of the cigar heading directly towards you.
As quickly as I can, sidestep the flick, wrap my hand around the back of his head, the front of my other hand, where it's going to make sure that cigar goes right down his throat. And I'll close them and let them meet in the middle.
Wouldn't you be so kind as to go ahead? Strength plus brawl. Contested, of course. There is a formula that is usually erroneously used by most law enforcement around the country. It stems from the very real law of FWTP, but it is one of escalating levels of aggression, so that you put down any threat as quickly and cleanly as possible, so that it's a lesson to those who would attempt to challenge you, challenge your authority, challenge your office. It is clear that Bo has no idea as to what that level of progressive aggression is. Taking the burning cigar and attempting to shove it into the throat of a living individual and cause irreparable aggravated damage is, well, some would say it's an exaggeration, some would say it's an over-exaggeration, but to those who know Bo, it is just another Tuesday. And as the yowling pain of the scarred, mentally deeply individual who is now attempting to gag and free himself of the burning cherry of his cigar. What is it that Bo's doing? Because there's no way that anyone across the street inside the bar did not hear that.
I'm hungry, so I'm hungry, but since I'm here, go ahead and engage that alley cat real quick for a quick nip, as I make it seem like I'm just like wrestling him to the ground.
At this point, with him being already in pain and a little distracted by the inside of his being set on fire by his own cigar, no real role needed for the grapple to the ground. What is needed is for you to act as if it's not what it is, which is you feeding on a person. To be so kind as go ahead and roll your charisma plus either subterfuge or performance, your choice. And while that roll is happening, Harper, lovely Harper, having a small carbon footprint does a lot for your sense of giving back to the environment, giving back to the world, giving your idea as to find a cleaner way to exist, because the planet has suffered enough. You come strolling north along St. Philippe. The crowds are heavy. There are people moving to and from. Going about their night, the guest to your city, the heavy foot traffic, while not to the levels of Mardi Gras or some football game or some World Series of soccer that usually takes place here, does cause the ride from the ferry to the lamplighter to take a little longer than it should, because Harper is a little more considerate of not running people down. It means that as the escapes the gentleman in Beauregard's care, Harper is easing towards the lamplighter within earshot. Does she investigate the yell of pain, or does she go about her business trying to get her bike locked down and get inside so that she can speak with Morgaine and figure out what the game plan is, where she'll be floating for the evening, what sort of need there is?
Like most people, she is going to just ignore the scream. I'm sure someone else is already calling the cops. Lovely bystander effect. And she goes in through the front door.
It's surprising that as heavy as the foot traffic is outside, that this front portion of the bar isn't more busy, isn't busier, isn't as usual rocking off the rails. The bartenders are not slow. They're not at rest. They're just not as busy as they normally are. Normally, by this point in the evening, when you've managed to make it here before, they are putting on full-fledged shows. There's flare happening. Bottles are being flipped. Flame is being spewed. There's card tricks going on. Coins are disappearing. Up close magic is happening. It is a circus up close and personal. It's just not that busy tonight. There's no reason to hustle for more tips. There's no reason to impress the crowd, to have them come back and spend all of their hard-won vacation money here at the Lamplighter. So business is brisk. It's just light. And as you move into the bar, Abraham, the scream of pain from the other side of the building, while most people inside wouldn't hear it over the music and the bass and what have you, is within your purview. You are kindred. It is what it is, and someone screaming in pain triggers the predator in you. Something in pain typically means something old or young or sick or otherwise easily dispatched. What do you do? What do you do seeing that Harper is making their way into the front door as you close the southwestern door and are moving back into the space? Abraham, Harper, being close and personal with one another, or close enough to see each other, is there something else that you all would be doing, engaging in conversation, seeking out more gain, or following Abraham's case, or following that sound of screaming?
Okay. While the making his way towards the sound of screaming, I assume, as you mentioned, it was by one of the doors, one of the exits. I will, on the way, if I see a member of the staff, let them know to keep an eye on those two lubbers, so to speak, and make my way towards that door.
It is the northeast. It is the northeast door, the door that faces Lafitte. Again, it's a door that's used considerably more than the southwestern door, but usually only when someone is drunk enough to need to be carried across the street, so that they don't have to go the long way around. It's a little out of the way. It means you pass Harper as she's entering and taking in the staff and taking in the lack of business.
Just give Harper a nod as I pass her.
He will smile and nod in acknowledgement.
There's a cordiality, a cordialness that most people don't really ever quite know where it comes from or how to deal with it. It's almost impossible to pass someone you know without either purposely trying to make sure you're not seen or going a little out of your way to acknowledge them. There's a smile, a head nod. There's typically a consideration on whether it's worth the time to engage in a little bit of small talk to make the night a little bit easier. It happens more when you're on vacation and you find out someone's from your state, let alone your city. But even in close personal proximity and seeing each other with some regularity, that consideration, that thought is there for Harper. That consideration, that thought is there for Abraham. They're screaming from the door, which is interesting. The bartender reaches across and pats Harper's forearm. I just want to tell you thank you for what you did for my uncle. Nobody liked that man, but you and your friends did a great job of making it seem like he wasn't completely the asshole everybody knew him to be.
Harper will turn and smile. Oh, it was absolutely our pleasure, dear. Everyone is doing well?
They are, though it looks like his wife is going to be joining him soon. I don't want to have to talk about this, but I've been meaning to stop by and speak with you about your services and maybe potentially, I hate to say this, but is there any way that I could receive a friends and associates discount? Two funerals so close upon each other, the family is stretched thin, and well, they weren't exactly the most loved neighbors and family members, but we still have to do something for them.
Will nod, and her facial expression will take on one of concern, and she will say, "Oh, it's no bother at all. Come by anytime you like, and we'll see what we can do for you.
That sounds lovely. I'll send my sister home by tomorrow morning so that we can work out some of the details, and you do what it is that you do, and hopefully we can have the arrangements all set up this time instead of having to run willy-nilly like we did for my uncle.
There is a comfort in knowing the end is coming and being prepared.
I wish it was that easy, but I'll tell you, I tell you, while she may not have been the most loving individual, she was not half the asshole that my uncle was, and I'd like to do a little bit better by her if we possibly can. So instead of just being you and your two friends, is there any way we can get maybe a group rate with maybe 5 or 6 additional people? She'd really appreciate it, and while the parade is cheaper, of course, I don't think that they're quite fit. I don't think I have ever seen her sing. She did dance, but not necessarily sing along with anything. And the parade might be a little too lively for her to get across what she needs to get across to. You know what I mean?
I do. When you come in tomorrow, I will have my people put you in touch with one of my dear friends. She's been with me since I first started. She will help you make the best decisions possible.
Thank you, Callan. Thank you, Callan. Can I get you a drink? You never do drink. Did you have an issue with the sauce?
No, I just rarely partake. I find that in my line of work, it does best to have a clear head.
Well, sure thing. But if you need anything, go ahead and reach out. I'll do my best to take care of you. It would be an honor.
She will smile and pat him gently on the forearm. I very much appreciate that.
Speaking of appreciate, a show of emotion, a show of contact. Ian, as you and this mountain of an outsider get down to brass tacks, are you gonna shoot him? Are you a pistol?
No, I'm certainly going for the pistol whip. Shooting in this occasion is quite the opposite of what I actually wanted. I wanted nice, quick, and quiet, but that didn't seem to be going down. He's got a bit more fight to him, and it wouldn't be sporting to pull a gun and use it on a man so willing to go to fisticuffs.
There is a certain class of individual to which the only answer is violence. He is one of those individuals. And as you two crash together like the wild animals that you are, it is hard for the vitae coating the inside of your being to not find some semblance of potential inherent value to something or someone like that. Someone who believes that the only thing better than a good counter punch is a great first punch. The person who believes that while a good defense is made of nothing but a strong offense, the strong offense is only made out of stronger offense.
In this scenario, I believe it's rather fitting to test which of us has the stronger offense then.
Humans have proven to be. And the thought is a little disconcerting, because even though you are dead, you were at one point human. And seeing the difference between what you are now and who you were then seeing it so abstractly as no longer human comes as a bit of a shock and a surprise. Ian has been dead long enough that he has begun to mentally distance himself from the natural world. He's begun to distance himself from humanity. And as his teeth sink into the flesh of this mountain of muscle, it's a bit of a disconcerting thought. Because the moment that the fangs sink in and the pleasure takes over, there's the natural perfume of pleasure being released. There's the natural slickness to the skin. There's all the pleasure centers of your brain being fired and all of the pleasure centers across his body being fired from the kiss. There's a rise in palpitations, the heart, the eyes go fuzzy, the legs grow weak, they turn to jelly, and a world of bliss washes over him. Do you drain him dry? Do you take just what you believe you need?
I think relying on the aspects of the kiss to make the details a little fuzzy is going to be my go-to. I can't be leaving a body because a body requires cleanup, and I ain't got time for that right now. Though, rather than draining him dry, I will take his ID out of the wallet if he's got it.
Staff Sergeant Michael Abernathy III.
Oh fuck. Alrighty.
You know retired ID. You know reserve ID. As much as you would like to not, you know military investigation ID. He is part of the DI. He is part of the core of Army that are trained to investigate and bring to justice members of the service who have transgressed local or constitutional law. In other words, he is trained to hunt killers. Men and women trained to destroy life. And he is that thin line that keeps them in check and only using their skills when ordered to do so. And he lies weakened with pleasure, his mind fuging over as you look at his ID.
Oh, god damn it. Yeah. Leaving a bloodhound out there with a scent trail is never a good idea. I guess I'm gonna have a body to clean up later.
You got his ID. You know where. You know what barracks and housing he stay in. You know where he's operating out of right now. Are you going to take the time to go ahead and destroy him, or are you going to circle back to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back to it.
So,
No. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's better to just get it over with. I don't want him starting up anything that might lead to bigger problems.
So fashionably late is not going to be something that you are, is it? So you're going to take the time to feed on him until nothing left, and then destroy the body hopefully without being seen or witnessed by someone. After the small little scrabble you've had, the chances of that decrease exponentially by the moment.
Alright, on a scale of 1 to 10, how pissed would they be if I were later than... You know, I don't even need to know that answer. They would be incredibly pissed. Fuck it, circle back to it is. What mess I create is what mess I create. I'm gonna have to get the fuck out of here.
There we go. Carpe Noctem. Seize the night. Experience it with the fullness of your senses. Dive into what it takes, like being alive.
Yep. As much as it would be prudent to take the time to deal with this more aptly, I think that would also get me fucked in another way.
Well, you know the saying. You're damned.
Yep. Better a problem for tomorrow night than a problem that'll show its ugly head tonight.
That means that the trip, the drive, the remainder of the distance from Desire down to the quarter is fraught as only the consideration of what could have been, what could be, ever will be. There's several ways you could make that drive, all of them relatively close enough in time to not make that huge of a difference. You can hop back onto the expressway, take the 90 back to where it merges onto the 10 and continue on and hop off near 7th Ward or hop off near Tulane and circle back to the quarter. Or usually you can take the streets. You can take Alvar down and around till you get to 46, which is, you know, a major thoroughfare, and usually just fast enough, because while everyone knows Esplanade and everyone knows Elysian Fields, and most people are well aware of St. Claude, most people don't take it this hour of the evening. Most times it's all but clear sailing, especially being as you shouldn't drive into the quarter. And that's because you don't mind having your tickets pay for some sheriff's dental plan. Because the moment you have Louisiana plates and you drive into the quarter, no matter the time or season, you're going to be targeted by the sheriffs that move through the quarter frequently. You're going to be targeted by sometimes even the local cops that got nothing better to do than write tickets and overpriced. There are two major parking structures, down by Louis Armstrong and down by Jackson Square. But is he going to drive all the way in, or is he going to get close enough via St. Claude to park just outside the quarter and walk?
I mean, if we go down Almanasta into Franklin's next to Dragon's Den, there's a parking structure there. Leaves me about a 12-minute walk over to the Lamplighter.
It is. You're not going to take the major two parking structures. Nice. All right. That being the case, easy peasy, beautiful color girl that you are. It's hard to not notice how busy the streets are. Why is everybody so? Why are so many people? Is there a foosball game going on? Is there a concert? You know, it's not Mardi Gras. You know, it's not anything major. There's nothing the city's doing. There's no big festival that they do around this time of year. But there's a lot of guests, a lot of people that's not exactly from the area, in the area.
Do I get anything reading on Sense the Beast?
Yes, but that's not unusual. It is the quarter. It is prime hunting territories. There's usually a kindred or more within a block and a half of you at any point throughout the evening, whether they're local or tourists. And especially with so many folks moving back and forth, it's easy enough to blend in amongst the sheep and follow someone until they're either too drunk or dumb enough to cut through a gangway by themselves to make themselves at home.
True enough.
Like shooting fish in a barrel. Though it shouldn't be this easy, especially being as, again, It's not Mardi Gras. It is not the Super Bowl. It is not a big concert going on. The city is not throwing a festival. What the hell is Mallory doing getting off a damn streetcar? Don't she know she should just drive over, maybe take a bike, maybe take a leap from building to building? But there she is, stepping off the streetcar just ahead of you as you're crossing towards the lamplighter.
Hey, you over there, what the hell are you doing using that? That's far too sensible for your ilk. How you doing? Where you at?
Mal looks at him, arching one well-done eyebrow. Minding my damn business, that's what I'm doing. You seen all these people around here tonight?
Yeah, I noticed it. Ain't nothing too... well, too settling to say the least.
Well, you done seen they the badge wearing type, huh?
I mean, I don't see cargo shorts and sunglasses all over the place, but...
You ain't yet? Oh, I done passed a whole bunch on trolley.
Shit, round where?
Ugh. And then she kind of goes back over the route they took.
That is a mite too close for me. We best hurry up and make it to the lamplighter. They got something they calling us in for tonight, and I can't help but look at this and think coincidence may not be what we're looking at.
Not at all coincident. This feels... Actually, the funny thing about it is I woke up this evening and spirits was talking and I kind of drowned them out after a while because they're always talking, but they seem a little more chatty than normal this evening.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure that hearing spirits and such is normal for you, but if they're getting mighty chatty, then... well, they got something to say, and if they got something to say, that's never a good sign. Well, let's hope that whatever gree you brought with yourself tonight ends up turning out well.
There are certain things that are predestined. Death and taxes. That's the old chestnut that everyone understands. The one constant is death and taxes. There's another constant, and that's change. And that for immortal beings, there's never enough time. There's never enough left to them. There's always someone, something in the dark, willing to feed on them, willing to turn the predators into the prey. If you fixate on it, if you think about it too long, it's almost impossible to not be filled with a sense of paranoia and dread with every shadow. If you fixate on it. Luckily, most kindred don't. Most kindred don't give in to that real paranoia-inspiring fact that there's always a larger predator, and usually far closer than one would expect. So as they close on the lamplighter, watching Salem appear from amidst the crowds all around them as if they are a specter, it's very much a similar moment of realizing just how close to danger you always are. As you make your way to the lamplighter, Salem, as you're close enough to see it ahead of you, Ian, Evergreen, and Mal seem to swim up out of the pool of all of these well-meaning, well-heeled tourists.
Did we spot her in turn?
Yes.
Give a nice visible wave and a kind of beckoning gesture over the heads of anybody that might obstruct sight if she's in range for audio. I don't know if you too much in the same light as Mal here, but you picking up something strange?
Define strange.
Mighty busy for this time of year.
So it is. People where they shouldn't be.
And dressed strange as strange can be.
Well, yeah, you feeling alright? Anything occur with you on your way over here, or business as usual besides the special interests we got tonight?
Other than being cock-blocked, but it happens.
Well, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Well, unless you two got other business, I suggest we get a moving.
Anyone know why we're here?
No, I do not. Beyond the fact that we was called, and that's about the only reason I need.
Must be something big if everyone's being called, or more than one of us.
Working security is not too much in the way of unusual for me, though seeing you two in the same place being called at the same time is.
And then the scream. A yowl of someone tall, masculine, with a very deep voice. The push and pull of attentions and intentions as you see a few people, foolish people, the sort of people that are usually eaten first by the escaped lion, bear, tiger, or whoever, go running toward the sound of the scream. A few others you can see clearly looking over their shoulder as they take further steps away from the sounds of the scream. And the beauty of being a local is that there are certain offices that you just kind of grow accustomed to seeing. You may not even talk to them, but you recognize that buzz cut more than the other buzz cut. You recognize that flat top versus the one who doesn't have it. You recognize that particular paunch behind the stab-proof shell more than others, even if they're not wearing their uniform. And they move towards the sound of the yell, the sound of the male scream.
Oh shit! This is in the direction of the lamplighter, right?
100% so.
Alright, girls, we best get a move on now. Hey, either you think that you are capable of distracting somebody for a good bit of time?
I'm sure it's within my wheelhouse.
I think you can get that man's attention. I point towards L. Buzzcut.
Look over that way.
If you look up the word police officer, law enforcement agent in the dictionary, you'd see a picture of him from high school.
Yeah, whatever's going on towards the lamplighter, I don't want him seeing it before I do. Think you can fix that for me?
One way or another.
Be careful though. Seems we already got one mess to deal with. Mal, you can follow along if you would. Don't get caught up in the crowd. And, do whatever it is you do. And with that, he'll begin his limping trot towards the sound.
Mal kind of looks back and forth between Salem and Everett and Slux. Alright, girl, well, don't get caught out too hard. I gotta go catch up with him and find out what the hell going on. So she's pepping her step, not unnaturally fast, but just a little faster than she might stroll, and weaving her way through people, kind of like a ballerina.
Oh, straight up dancing through Bourbon Street. Let's go.
It is the view you would normally not expect to see anywhere else. On Bourbon Street, dancing in the streets is a way of life. It is a sign that you are at one with the culture around you and that you've given yourself over to the magic that is the city. It's weirder that there aren't more frolickers. It's weirder that even with someone screaming or having screamed in pain, and even though there's people moving through the crowd towards that sound and away from that sound, that there aren't more inebriated individuals travailing the sidewalk. There's a moment that exists, everyone feels that things are too quiet or things are too loud. There's something off about the moment, and it's only when you look back and look back and look back and you compare it to what those moments were like before then that you realize that that small thing that was off, that changed everything, was something that you probably should have noticed easily hundreds of moments before. And as Abraham gets to the door, which shouldn't be open, he hadn't quite circled back around because he had got caught up with the southwest western door. He didn't get a chance to check the north side, especially here on this main level, because usually it's nothing to ever worry about. That door is used when someone's too drunk. Why is it open? Why are people and you see Bo wrestling a pseudo mountain of muscle to the ground. As a kindred, you know what pleasure in your prey looks like. You know how the kiss works. It's magic. For you, it's as plain as day. Others near at hand would think that he's in close quarter combat. He's trying to get a guillotine or cross-face choke or whatever they do on that WWMMA stuff that they watch on TV. But for kindred, for those who play for blood, it's obvious, and a portion of you is jealous. A portion of you is always jealous. There's a portion of you that when hunger is satiated, feels offended that it is not your hunger being satiated.
I'm just going to do a little eye twitch and place my hand on Bo's shoulder and just say, "My son, be mindful of your surroundings. You're causing a scene."
Oh, a lovely scene. You have people rushing forward to offer aid and assistance to someone screaming in the night. The people running away, and the sounds of footfalls growing closer is undeniably similar to what a herd of elephants might sound like if they were rushing so they weren't late for the movies.
Now let's get inside.
Get up. I only nipped him. He was one to act bad, so I showed him what bad was. I just nipped him a little bit. Walk inside with everybody.
And the burn there. As I walk him inside. What's that?
I nipped him. At the nip.
And he screamed. Be terrible.
The nip.
Say nip one more time and I'll punch you in the nuts.
Still haven't changed. Hey.
There's a dilation of time that happens in every feat. Even those surprisingly cognizant as to the demands and responsibilities of the beast. Even those who starve themselves with every opportunity they can so as to not give in to the beast. The absorption of life is all consuming for kindred. The absorption of life through feeding is all consuming for every facet of the kindred community. So much so that while for those who sink Fang, it's a matter of seconds, sweet seconds of dancing at heaven's gate, sweet few blissful seconds of being welcomed to Odin's lone house in the sky, his feasting hall filled with cups of ambrosia. Even for them, for those caught up in that moment, for those exchanging in that feeding, it's just a matter of heartbeats, precious few heartbeats. Outside of that dilated time and the dilated sense, minutes threatening quarter hours threatening half, so forth and so on, pass as they become one with the beating heart of their victims. They feel the life coursing over their lips and down their bottomless pits. There was Abraham pulled Bo from his victim. Instead of the few seconds that it felt like for Bo, instead of it being a few seconds of heaven, it was in fact minutes. There was in fact a crowd. There was in fact a crowd growing larger. Part of that crowd being Evergreen and Mal. While steps behind them, Salem worked towards doing what to distract the flat-top individual moving towards the lamplighter and the sounds of cries in the night.
Excuse me, sir. You don't seem the type that would come down here to dance with the devil.
What, ma'am?
You seem a bit out of sorts. Is there somewhere I can direct you?
No, I need to find out what's going on over here. And you can tell there's a autonomic response that he's restraining. There's a small form of a claw made with his left hand as if he's reaching for something roughly the size of a mobile. The hanging connector to the walkie-talkie that rests on their epaulet, to which you can hit the button and speak into your mobile, letting your dispatch know what's going on, calling for reinforcements. But Instead of going towards his full shoulders, towards the epaulette there, because there's no epaulette. He's in casual attire. He's not on duty. Well, he's on duty, but no one's supposed to know he's on duty. And he stops himself just as he, and there's, ma'am, I need to go. Are you okay? Do you know what's going on?
I'm fine. Are you okay? Do you know what's going on?
Yes, I'm going to find out. Why don't you wait here? I'll, why don't you call 911? You have a cell phone. Go ahead, use that. And he keeps trying to.
You know
pass
what?
you.
As she takes a side step to kind of block his path a little bit, says, I would probably just forget about that, using her dominate.
In that moment, with him set to rush to someone's aid, he has no real resistance, but would you be so kind as to give it a quick roll? And as long as you don't fail, you have him. If you fail, he shakes it off and feels as if somebody reached inside his head and smacked him around. Because after all, the only reward for being a dedicated law enforcement officer is to be smacked around by a woman you can live one-handed. The only reward for caring about the actual public around you, vilified and demonized, to be waylaid, put asunder, being a tried and true believer, the mandate of law and order.
And that's a 1 success.
There is a petty part of you that leaps for joy. There are certain people that are naturally dense, and not dense because of lack of intelligence, but they are so set, they're so determined, they are so indomitable that affecting their minds, even if it's just enough to nudge them slightly off course, is a major success. His mind is such a thing, set and determined in his ways, resistance to nearly every act of influence upon him, socially, politically, mechanically. He was told that he should make a connection with his spouse. He should try opening up and being more human with her, to share how his day is going and to get in touch with his feelings. Let her in. They argued for 4 days afterwards. What was wrong with her? Why was she trying to get inside his defenses? Why does she want to hurt him? He is set in his ways. He is automatically expecting a trap around every corner. He sees the width and bulk of the populace as criminals waiting to happen until proven otherwise. He is almost 180 degrees from the bright-eyed and hopeful individual he was those 15 years ago when he went into the academy. That person doesn't exist anymore. The hope is still there. The belief in the system is still there. But the paranoia has taken root, it's taken heart. And that's what sits there on his face. As you've gotten him to lose track of time, but he's not sure how much time. He knows that something isn't right. He doesn't know where it is and why. Ooh, there was a... What?
She will brush by him at that point, since he doesn't remember their interaction, or shouldn't remember their interaction. Say, excuse me, officer. Just keep walking.
Which throws him for even more of a loop. Because he's undercover. He's in casual attire. No one's supposed to know he's the officer. What the heck? Is he losing his touch? Is he up for retirement? Why? Why am I alone? Where's my partner? Oh, that's right. He was by the bar. He was gonna post up at the bar because of when you all get to the lamplighter. Bo is being pulled off of a gentleman who's ill-dressed for the weather. His lips chapped and charred already. The vomited remains of the burned cigar laying on the ground before him. And Abe pulling Bo from the individual who's laying there in a layered winter jacket with mid-ranged expensive hiking boots polished to a bright sheen. Legs reeling in pain, looking for all the world as if he just got the news that he won $1 million. Even though he's still writhing in pain, there's a sense of peace all across his face.
On a quick glance, is this man still bleeding out?
Yes, the wound wasn't licked. Abe pulled Bo off of him.
Okay. I assume, are there people in the crowd actually trying to step forward and help, or is it Gawker Central right now?
It is Gawker Central. Phones are coming out. Flashes are beginning to go off. and individuals are working their way through the crowd there with all due intentions.
Well, fuck. If this place is getting flashed to high hell, and he's bleeding out, he gonna die anyways, there's nothing much I can do without putting myself on somebody's phone. Fuck. I look to Mallory and just kind of whisper over, hey, we need to get inside, but try and stay out of the line of sight of anybody's camera, okay? This is a pile of shit and a half. And with that, he just gonna try and move his way around to the main entrance and hope to God that the God or whatever's listening, that the hostess got the resources necessary to make that as clean as possible, because ain't nothing he can do in this moment gonna fix that.
Now has a moment of kind of watching Bo and Abe go into the club, and smirks to herself, hearing him say it was just a nip. She's like, you a whole lie. And then looks down at the man and shakes her head because she can't do nothing either. And kind of cuts around behind people, trying to, like Everett said, stay out of line of sight and get inside the building.
Yeah, that's one of those, there ain't no timer, there ain't no fuse. That fucking bomb's already gone off. All that's left is the blast zone.
Speaking of blast zone, it starts with a, well, don't that about beat all, and grows into, oh shit, and then you hear a couple of, way to go, Rocky! Good damn job! Make that motherfucker bleed! As Abe and Bo come back inside, the few witnesses that were actually part of the bar, but they're already in the bar, giving Bo kudos for beating the hell out of that clearly undercover cop. Damn, dog's coming around here causing trouble. Good job, boy. Good job, boy. Hearing this, Harper, is there anything that you might like to add? Hearing this, Abraham and Bo, is there anything you'd like to add?
Silently thinking to myself, fuck.
I'm silently thinking to myself, don't
I'm just
encourage the
going to
idiot.
kind of sit back and just watch, because this is either going to be horribly amusing or horribly terrible. And either way, it's going to be an interesting time.
I'm just gonna whisper to Bo, you try not to cause any big scene than you already have. I'm gonna go continue my sweep of the building. And I'm just gonna walk off.
Alright.
Mal kind of gives them both that slightly crazy but very much amused grin as she saunters past them both, close enough for only them two to hear. Y'all know he bleeding out, right? There's finna be a body in the alleyway.
Actually, on that note, nobody, does the staff of this building include some kind of patch-up, some kind of medical staff that's mainly just there for cuts and bruises?
No.
Oh, fuck.
Purposefully so. Anyone bleeds in the lamplighter is usually doing it at the behest of the grand hostess herself, usually, or accounted for to do so. And while it's never quite as bad as the old exploitation movies from the late 70s, early 80s, you know, movies like NOLA, Food of the Gods, Ben, Jaws, or Piranha, it's very, very close to that. There was a night that has now become a monthly event where 5 of the most influential local death metal bands will be invited and put on a pseudo private show. Well, part of the attraction is the fans who get the chance to see this show at a discounted price form a wall of death, except for they are allowed to, in fact, break noses and cause bleeding galore. The initial night started with just 2 bands who were double booked because they were initially one band that split into two and refused to give up the night. So it was a battle of the bands, and they started attracting more and more and more. Now that once a month, instead of actually paying a tithe to Prince Gibo, the bands are allowed to play, and the kindred are allowed to play. And whatever happens, happens.
Gotcha.
And Lawson's funeral home, her network of funerary agents and mortuary agents, end up helping her dispose of John and Jane Doe's. And speaking of John and Jane Doe and those who helped properly destroy them, Mal's sitting at... Well, not Mal, I'm sorry. I meant to say Harper. Harper is sitting at the bar as you all make your way in. The custodial engineer of Kindred Community. One of the many outlets to why when people go missing, they really go missing.
Just kind of, as he walks in, sees, I assume, Abraham and Beauregard moving to a more off-scene location.
Yep, Abe's moving through the building. Bo is being cheered on by some of the less legal members of the gathered who are cheering him on. Some who are slightly regulars, some who are just going along with the zeitgeist at the moment. Some jackass is standing on the bar stool at the end of the bar, waving at him. Hey, I got your drink. Come on, I get the next one.
Cool. Just a locking eyes with Harper and just a singular point towards the further in, kind of. He'll just give her a polite wave, let her know he's over here, and walk on by saying, I see you get called in too.
Harper
You see what happened out there?
smile up at him. I didn't see what happened outside. But I did hear the scream from inside. It's been an interesting night, it seems.
Yeah, so far I've been quite fucked up. Well,
Should I call my people?
you may very well need to. Don't know if that boy's gonna bleed out, but chances are looking likely.
Lovely. He will glance at her watch. I suppose it's time to go.
Yeah, we got
Mallory's kind of half listening to them both, but she's watching the guy standing on the bar stool at the end of the counter, and she's like holding her hand up 5, 4, 3, 2, waiting for him to fall off the bar stool.
Hey, Bo, come on, get yo. And that negative one, he goes off of the bar stool because he's too excited. He's rarely had the opportunity of being in the company of tough men with any regularity, and a local hero who manages to put the beats on the beat cops is a local hero. His social status will go up by him buying a drink, and so he is excitedly waving, trying to get Bo's attention. Oh my God! As much as he never really liked that son of a bitch, motherfucker just creepy as all get out. There's something evil and dark about that motherfucker. He's been heard to be said several times when fully into his cups, which, so that you all are aware, is B&B liqueur, the orange citrus liqueur that is surprisingly creamy, despite there's no cream in it. It's surprisingly rich and just sweet enough that it counts as a dessert without there actually being any rise in the sugar content.
Is he about to fall and crack himself on something? Oh, sorry, what'd you say, Bo?
Starts to walk towards everybody to the gathered group, just kind of sliding around everybody. Brings you here?
Gotcha. And before I respond to that, Nobu, is that gentleman about to fall and crack his head on something?
Yep.
Is there a way I can attempt to intercept that shit?
The attempt can always be made.
Alright, I'm gonna try and make sure that if there is bodies here, at the very least the number's a little bit lower.
Excellent. So you're gonna try to catch a body? Nice. You'd be so kind of. Would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your dexterity athletics? And while you make that roll, Salem, the victory of wiping someone so entrenched in their beliefs as that is its own victory. What is not its own victory is making it to the lamplighter, seeing someone bleeding out from tears in their neck with a crowd gathered around and more cops closing on the scene. The fact that there's so many cops in the area not wearing the uniform triggers what can best be described as extreme paranoia. What do you do?
She will initially look about in a reserve as the masquerade has just been shattered as a man bleeds out with bite marks in his neck. She will try to figure out how to get over there to see if there's anything she can do. She does have a dot in medicine, but that might not be enough for bleeding out from bite marks in the neck.
Wits and medicine, because you know the cause of the injury, which is usually what most treating it based on what caused the injury, how to best stop what's inside of a person from making it to the outside. And if there's something that's normally outside of a person that's inside a person, getting it out without causing more damage is typically what most triage can be boiled down to. And so your DC is 2.
Well, I rolled before you gave me the DC, but I have 4.
There's several ways you can go about stopping him from bleeding out. One of which is a little more disgusting than the other, considering that you don't know whose mouth has been where that left that there. And while kindred don't ever die of disease, they do become carrier to their particular victim pool from time to time. Usually for a night or two, sometimes for a little bit longer if it's particularly virulent, but usually no more than a night or two. And especially if you are blushed to blend in with the sheep around you. There's also just your basic triage, staunching the blood flow with something that is wrapped tightly enough to keep what's inside him from continuing to leak out. And you're sure that medical help is on the way, considering how many police are actually undercover in the area, staring at the body as they move the crowd back. Their reflexes and autonomic responses to clearing a scene, giving the person, helping the body more space, clicks in autonomically. They're putting their heads together because they didn't want to break their cover, but it is clear that they need to act. You see it like dominoes falling one behind the other as they agree that whatever operation they were on needs to take a second seat because one of their own is down. And then you hear the clip clop of horses growing closer, and you know that it is mounted police that patrol the quarter from time to time. And there's large crowds when there's an increased public presence, which means the actual uniformed officers are growing near, and they're more on the way, staunching the bleeding, licking the wound, and potentially risking your herd. But most importantly, you have the help of the officers creating a space and a gap between those onlookers so that you have time to do that, to triage the downed officer at your feet.
I will attempt to staunch the flow of blood, ripping part of his shirt or something to press up against it. And as soon as there are enough cops present, I will try to convince one of them to do it so I can slip off.
All right. Do me a favor, roll charisma and stealth. Contest it. See how convincing you are to keep and distracting they are for you to slip away.
Might I rouse charisma, as dangerous as that is at the moment?
Oh yeah. Here's some fire. Play with it as much as you like.
Thank you, dice roller.
You poke the beast and does not snarl in response. It doesn't take another pound to flesh. Cops are surprisingly observant. Pay attention to things. They add things. They expect the world to be horrible. And even though you are being effectively a good Samaritan, there are some who consider you a potential suspect or cause or a witness, some maybe a help to make sure whoever did this to their brother pays the maximum price that they could make happen. But you managed to do it. You managed to slip away, disappear into the crowd, and disappear into the lamplighter. While inside the lamplighter, Jackass is on his chair trying to get Bo to come closer so he can buy him a shot, buy him a drink. As much as he doesn't like the monstrous individual that he thinks that Bo is, there's something unsettling about him. Don't you all see it? As he's been heard to be said repeatedly. And as he teeters and Mal speaks a future into existence, almost as if they could see it happening. He teeters. His balance is lost. Snarling in the fucking presence of coincidence, Evergreen clears the distance, faster than one would expect a one-legged man to do. Literally, he moves as if he not only has 2 legs, but that they are moving at the speed of sound. You've seen people move faster, or more specifically, you've seen kindred move faster, but you have never seen a one-legged person threaten the land speed record. But he does. And as Mari, short for Lamarius, is inches from crashing himself against the stone floor Evergreen is there. Snarl on his lips, the effort and exertion having a flash and flicker, a fang as he snatches him, setting him on his feet. Some noble part of Evergreen willing that there not be another body, willing that they're here for a job, that the attraction of paramedics, EMTs, and police would make that job harder, snatches him up with no doubt left at anyone who saw him move. There's magic in the world. There's no way that that's human. That was an archangel. There was a guardian angel acting through one of the bouncers to keep this boy, Lamarius, to his actual family members. But he insists that there's something cooler about being called Mari. From cracking himself wide open. Harper sitting close enough to the bartender to see that double take, the growing seed of... Did I just...
Harper, in response, as he's trying to take in what he's getting, will tap the bar to get his attention and order a death in the afternoon.
I'll just pat the boy real hard on the shoulder and give a chuckle and say, "Man, all those years in track, guess they be showing good for somebody. Now, why don't you use chairs appropriately instead of trying to get yourself killed?"
Harper, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your charisma and subterfuge? And Evergreen, would you be so kind as to roll your manipulation and subterfuge?
Oh, I am fucked.
Can Mal throw somebody an extra dice? Because she is going to help.
How would she like to assist in the weaving of this lie?
Okay, so which one is the one that we're distracting? Are we distracting the bartender or the boy?
Well, I'm distracting the bartender.
I head over towards the boy.
Yes.
Kind of get him away from this whole thing.
Well, then she'll help distract the bartender by saying, "See, he only knew to go get him because he was watching me watch him and then started looking."
Delicious. And by delicious, I mean horribly crunchy, because here's what happened. And it's a thing that no kindred really pays attention to. It is a facet of what you all are. It is a facet that is unshakable. There are certain members of your community that are simply more beast than not. There are simply more kindred that are visibly predators. Their presence is unsettling. The closer they are to humanity, the worse it is. Sometimes that the natural outcropping of them being more monstrous, more obviously eerie, is a response of fear. The response of fear being aggressive. The snarling of teeth, the swelling up, the attempt to intimidate or dominate with their presence and drive the person further outside of their personal space. And one such specter of death, one such predator at heart and in visage, stalks through the park. It is clear and obvious that they are a soul of violence. It would be admirable. You can see them stalking across a battlefield somewhere in the middle of the Sahara. You can see them rounding a mountain with Hannibal charging and encircling Rome. You could see them one early morning fighting their way through a line of legionnaires defending what became Wessex, defending Caledonia. See them charging up and out of a Saharan forest. You can see them hundreds of different moments in the past of most visceral violence that were possible. Battlefield after battlefield, war after war. And as you tower over Mari, Bo, how will you separate him from Evergreen? His eyes, his attempt to get a bit of shine from your presence, reflecting that he bit off more than he could chew. While he's always thought you scary, while he's always thought you dangerous, he's never been close enough to really get the full effect. The way that his blood freezes in his veins as he looks up. Thankful though he is, flushed with alcohol though he is, his cheeks ruddier than they should be, growing almost ghostly pale as you are close enough that he realizes how tall you are. As you are close enough, immediately after having his life flash before his eyes as Evergreen snatched him from death. Not sure how Evergreen did. It was clearly magic. It was clearly meant to be. But with all of that circulating, percolating in his brain, standing close enough to look up at the wall of danger that you are, what is it that you do? What is it that you say? How do you pull Mari from Evergreen's clutches?
Clear the throat. And then a very slowly, so that makes sure that Murray understands. Give me a jack meat, and I'll be at your table in a minute.
Salem, you walk through the front door. It is clear something has happened. It is clear that the normal, jovial, welcoming mood of the lamplighter is a little different. There are truths being discovered, hopes being lost and dashed upon the rocks of fear, and nearly the entirety of your loosely connected coterie is present on a night when there's supposed to be a meeting with the high muckety mucks of several different crews throughout the city, while there's a police presence on the street that can only be quantified as a siege, while there's a member of law enforcement who, if not for certain interventions, would most assuredly have become a member of the deceased, and as all of these things are settling in place for all of the other kindred present. While there's something in the air that says, "Danger, Will Robinson," you hear from across the end of the building as people begin running, pushing, shoving towards Abraham as they make their way toward the front door out. Abraham smells it first. There's a fire has a presence. Fire has a weight to it that triggers, even in humans, a fight or flight situation. But electrical fire is a combination of ozone and that fiery presence. It is a combination of wrongness, because when everyone thinks of ozone, they think of something out and bright, something outside, something free of the opportunity of fire. But then the fire itself makes a lie of that notion, of that feeling. And the insulating of the wires only adds to that wrongness, only adds to that, oh shit, that naturally comes with fire.
Do I have any idea about where this fire is?
Would you be so
Or
kind?
where it's starting?
Would you be so kind as just to roll your wits and either subterfuge or larceny?
I'm gonna raise my wits, I think.
As long as you don't fail, the answer is yours. There's a thought that immediately smacks across Abraham's cortex. There's a thought that settles into his heart and triggers that extraordinary sense of rage that accompanies being a Bruja. There is a sense that is inescapable.
2 successes.
Outside the door, the southwestern door, there's an access point for where the power comes into the house, comes into the building. The lamplighter is a very old building, but it has been retrofitted over the years. It's been modernized along the way. It has old wires. It has old wiring, though it's been kept up and brought up to a semblance of standard. There's no way that anyone would accidentally have gone out that southwestern door. There's no way that 2 young individuals dressed as they are with the money that they would have had any shame in making out in one of the many dark corners of the building. There's nothing wholesome about their PDA. It was a distraction specifically designed to give them the opportunity to create havoc. To what end, though, is the question. Because, well, everything has to make sense somehow. It has to add up somewhere. At least that's been Abraham's understanding of things ever since actually losing his faith. His passion is still there. He still likes the stories, the mythologies of it all. But that sense of belief in the just because dissipated decades ago. and a growl of annoyance escapes him as the crowd moves past him, rushing past him. There is something burning electrically down there on the second bottom floor. There's something afoot. And then one after the other, things begin to click. There's a meeting of powerful kindred because of the issues they've each been having at their recognized kindred locations. Loose lips sink ships is an aphorism that everyone knows. And all it takes is one poor decision for what should have been a secret, or what should be a secret, to reach ears that shouldn't be hearing it. And it is clear, based on what is in the offing, that somebody somewhere said too much to someone who was actually bothering to pay attention. This is the tip of the sword on an attack made in an effort to seize and siege at least one or more of the individuals scheduled to be here at the Lamplighter in less than an hour. Distract, dismay, cause chaos, keep everyone on the back foot. In other words, disrupt the natural security that should be in place when meeting with dangerous individuals. And with that thought resting there before us, I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode, and we'll see you guys next time.